So the number of condos available for rent in the second quarter of 2020 as compared in the second quarter of 2019 has increased by a factor of 80%. In this video, I'm going to explain a little bit more about that fact, this news item going around. As well, I'm going to react to it and give my opinions as to why it's potentially happening. Hello everyone, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate as well as Remax Realtron Realty Inc. You can find my contact info in the description box. I work with buyers, sellers, and I like to inform people on real estate matters. Let's get on with the video. So in today's video, as I said, I'm going to talk about the fact that the number of condos downtown available for rent has increased by a factor of 80%. Now, it's designated in terms of the specific area we're talking about as C1. I know that doesn't really mean a lot to you, but in the business, we designate the specific area, which has seen an 80% increase as C1. So where is C1? Well, it's the entertainment district, the financial district, Liberty Village, so on and so forth. And let's keep in mind, this is the number of condos available for rent, not the number of condos that are being rented, right? So just purely listings, the supply. You can think of it like this. The supply has increased by a factor of 80%. Whereas the price has actually decreased. And it makes sense if you know a little bit more about the background and what's happening, and if you know basic economics. When there is a large influx and increase in supply, and the demand has not increased, stagnated, or in other cases, somewhat diminished, what you have is typically a fall and decrease in prices. Now, I would call this somewhat of a renter's market, right? A renter's market is just like a buyer's market. It's the same concept at play. We have just transferred it into leasing, whereas a buyer's and seller's market refers to purchase and sale. There is not a lot of demand for condos for rent as compared to second quarter of last year. Thus, that combined with the fact that there's a great increase in supply means renters have more options, more choices. Landlords are competing against each other. There's a lot of units available for sale. That's why the price decreases. And in this case, as I mentioned, hopefully the price has decreased by 9%. So we have an increase of supply of 80%, a decrease of price of 9%. The average price is still around $3,000. Nonetheless, it's still a 9% decrease. Now, why has this increase of 80% occurred in this specific area? Well, there are two main hypotheses and theories as to why there is this large increase in influx to the tune of 80%. One of which I agree with more than the other, but let's go through them first. Explanation number one is the fact that this corona pandemic, COVID-19, has induced a great deal of fear and uncertainty in people's lives. People who work downtown because their occupation is in downtown. So they're uncertain about the future of their job, whether they're gonna have a job or not. If they're concretely sure they're gonna have a job, or as sure as you can be, they're unsure if they wanna live downtown. Think about it, downtown is where the population is immensely dense. And as we've seen from the world pandemic, this COVID, like other pandemics, other viruses, spreads much more in highly densely populated areas as opposed to suburban areas. That combined with the fact that most people who live downtown because they work downtown and they want to be in proximity to their job to reduce the amount of time spent in traffic during their commute. But now, due to this pandemic, most people are working from home. So this explanation, this theory number one, explaining why there's an increase of 80%, goes as such. Most people are terminating their lease or not renewing their lease, thinking, I don't want to live downtown anyways. And even if I have to live downtown, even if I put the fear of the COVID spreading aside, I don't have to anymore because I work from home. So why am I paying this rent price to live in a city, in the core of a city that I can't use, enjoy, or it's not even beneficial to me in terms of commuting because I don't need to commute anyways. So they're canceling their lease, they're terminating their lease. As a result, a lot of units are back on the market available at the same time. Explanation number two has to do with the fact that a lot of short-term rental options are no longer available due to the COVID-19 pandemic. What do I mean by short-term rental options? Well, Airbnb. Airbnbs are short-term rental options. So you have a decrease of tourism, in some cases no tourism at all from countries due to the border situation. And people are not coming to Canada, they're not visiting Toronto, they're not renting Airbnbs. And people even who live in Canada and live in Toronto who would typically rent out an Airbnb for a weekend to party with their friends, even they are not doing as such. They're taking the precautions. They don't want to party. The owners are not renting it out. These short-term rental options, these Airbnbs, are no longer available. So the homeowners, the owners of these properties, need another avenue for cash flow. So they're putting the usual Airbnb short-term rental option aside, and they're going in the avenue of a long-term rental option. So this influx, I guess, can be explained according to the second explanation, because what would otherwise be a bunch of options for Airbnbs and short-term rental options are now crossing over into the long-term rental option category, causing this increase in influx of properties, condos available for rent, once again to the tune of 80% as previously mentioned. My thoughts. Well, I find explanation number 2 much more of a succinct and I would say accurate explanation. Not to say that explanation number 1 is not a contributing factor to this increase of 80%. I do think a lot of people are renewing, or rather not renewing, their leases downtown. I don't think a lot of people are terminating their leases downtown. I mean, me as a person who's in the business, worked with landlords, tenants, homeowners, all that, I realize how hard and difficult it is to successfully accomplish an early termination of a lease, even when both parties want to cooperate with one another. It's very difficult. Moreover, I think a lot of people realize that working from home is not going to be a mainstay for the foreseeable future. I do believe more people are going to work from home, but I still think that after everything is over, if there's a vaccine or the rates have diminished to a great extent where it's almost not a worry anymore, I do think people are going to start going back to work in their offices. So if the hypothesis is that people are saying to themselves, well, I rent downtown because I have to work downtown, but I'm no longer working in an office, so why am I even renting downtown? Once again, I do think some people apply that logic into not renewing. I don't think people apply that logic to terminating, because that would be very short-sighted, because you might not work in an office for 2020, even halfway through 2021. But at some point, if you plan to stay at that company, you will have to go back to the office. Maybe not at the same rate you were going back to the office prior to the pandemic, but you still have to peek your head in once and go to the office 1 to 3 times a week. Once again, even if that rate is greatly diminished, you still have to go back to the office. So I don't think people are terminating their lease for that reason. I think people are not renewing it. I think people underestimate how much Airbnb business there was downtown, especially in the C1, Entertainment District, Financial District, Liberty Village, all that. A lot of condo units were used for Airbnbs. And now that that's not an option, there is a great decrease in tourism. These homeowners have no other option but to derive cash flow from long-term options. And that's exactly what they're doing. Anyways, thanks for watching the video. This is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate, as well as Remax Realtron Realty Inc. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, comment, rate, and review, and many more videos coming out. Thank you.